anime avatars threaten your rightful supremacy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because this is gonna be like interactive story time. So
Nice.
so I don't know. Are you guys familiar with like the old Goosebump books?
Yep.
If you're a Reddit, you're a young kid. That's before your time. But the old Goosebump books, like you would go through the book and then there'd be a point where like you could choose what happens next, and it would be like, alright, go to page 4, 8, and then
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we're doing some of that here. So I'll be like asking you guys some questions, like, hey, what should we do here?
Okay.
One's like playing D&D, and then you guys.
I play D&D.
Oh, this sounds fun.
Yeah, and then you choose what to do, and then depending on what you choose is how the story develops.
Let's do it.
It's actually kind of cool with the not gonna lie.
Yeah.
A smaller group that you got.
Yeah. You'll make me go the hard route, I see. All right, so for those of you who don't know me, my name's Louis, also known as Too Fluent on Discord. I have a small little YouTube channel I'm developing. It's more like for fun. And Too Fluent is actually my pen name. So like when I was in high school, I would write poetry and short stories. And Too Fluent because I'm bilingual, so I would write stuff in English and Spanish and go back and forth and all that. And it was just fun for me. It's a way to express myself, right? And then I've been a lover of TCG since like 10 years old. I did Pokemon, then Dragon Ball Z, then Yu-Gi-Oh, then Magic and all that. And then started getting into some of the indie small games a few years ago and seeing the Kickstarter for Sorcery, and definitely went hard on it and love the game and all that. So now I'm all about supporting it. But then now, the one thing I seen with Sorcery that was a little lacking, but I understand why they did it on purpose, was not really having like a committed lore, which to me was cool because that's like a blank canvas for me to just do whatever I like to do with it. And then, so I kind of put this together a little bit last minute. It's not so edited and so refined, but this is called the Deathspeaker and the Spirit Destiny. And,
Okay.
yeah. And it's gonna be short, probably like a little half-hour read. And then there'll be parts here. I'll try to make it pretty obvious. I'm like, hey, what we should do here, and then tell me which route to take, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys. All right, so chapter 1, the Donnybrook Inn. The air was thick with the scent of spiced ale and roasting meat as the Battlemage strode into the Donnybrook Inn. His hooded cloak is trimmed with gold lace trim and billowed behind him. His staff, a gnarled piece of wood imbued with magical runes, was strapped to his back. He also was covered in relics amassed from countless years of travels and trade. There were bottles of elixirs, scrolls of maps of old knowledge, and spells of books of forbidden magic. These relics were fastened to him with ropes of ash and twine of jute. The inn was a melting pot of travelers, mercenaries, and the occasional thief, all drawn by the promise of warmth and a hearty meal. The Battlemage's presence commanded attention, though his indifferent gaze swept over the patrons without lingering. He approached a secluded corner where a hooded figure awaited. The Battlemage sat down without a word, his eyes narrowing as he studied his contact. From beneath the hood, a pair of sharp eyes met his. "You have what I seek?" the Battlemage asked. The hooded figure nodded, producing 2 ancient maps from the folds of his cloak. "The Spear of Destiny," he whispered, sliding 2 different parchments across the table. "Both of these maps will lead you to it, but you only have to choose one. But beware, others seek it too. If you're more keen to fire mana, choose map 1. If you're more keen to water mana, choose map 2. Which route should we take?
2 or 1?
Fire or water?
I'm seeing a lot of 2s.
Water's
Twos?
How about water?
Water's 2.
Water.
All right, cool.
Let's do water.
Very good. The Battlemage took the map, his fingers tracing the intricate lines and symbols. "There are no consequences," he dismissively said. "I will obtain the spear, and none shall stand in my way. As he stood to leave, the innkeeper's daughter, a young woman with bright eyes and a warm smile, approached with a tankard of ale. "For your journey," she offered, her voice tinged with curiosity and admiration. The Battlemage accepted the drink with a nod, though he didn't spare her a second glance. His thoughts were already on the road ahead, the relics to be found, and the spells to be mastered. He took a long draught of the ale, set the tankard down, and exited the inn with the map clutched tightly in his hand. Outside, the night was cold and clear. Stars glittered like shards of ice in the sky. The Battlemage mounted his steed and set off along the route the map showed, his destination clear, the kingdom of Agartha. He had no time for distractions, but fate had other plans. The Battlemage neared the ancient aqueducts that led to the kingdom of Agartha. A sense of unease settled over him. The air grew cooler, and the trees on either side of the path seemed to lean in, their branches whispering secrets. It was here, among the stone arches and the flowing waters, that he spotted her, a fan-veiled muse. Her ethereal form, shimmering in the twilight, was being harassed by a group of bandits. With a swift gesture, he unleashed a torrent of electric energy. The spell, a shimmering wave of force, struck the bandits, scattering them like leaves in the wind. The robbers shrieked and dissipated, leaving the muse trembling but unharmed. She turned to him, her eyes wide with grateful awe. "Thank you, noble Battlemage," she said, her voice a melody that seemed to echo in the very air. "I am forever in your debt. Please accept this as a token of my gratitude." From a pouch at her side, she produced a small vial filled with a glowing blue liquid. "This is sacred water of the font of life. It has the power to heal and restore. May it aid you in your quest." As he traveled further along the aqueducts, a shadow flitted across the moonlight path. The Deathspeaker, alerted by the disturbance, had sent a vile imp to delay him. The creature skittered ahead, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. The Battlemage's journey was about to become much more perilous. Chapter 2, Trials of the Aqueducts. The Battlemage continued his journey along the aqueducts, the rhythmic clatter of his steed's hooves echoing off the ancient stonework. The air grew more thick with an unnatural chill, and he sensed a malevolent presence lurking nearby. As he rounded a bend, a dark shape darted out, and from the shadows a vile imp. Its skin was dark red, glowing like embers, teeth like fangs, and claws like grey wolves. The creature launched itself forward at him with a hiss, claws outstretched. The Battlemage, reacting swiftly, dismounted and drew his black and silver sword, the blade gleaming in the faint moonlight. "You will find no victory here," the Battlemage declared, his voice cold and steady. The vile imp snarled and lunged, but the Battlemage was ready. With a swift, practiced motion, he swung his sword, its sharp edge slicing through the air. The imp screeched as the blade met his mark, cutting deep into the twisted flesh. Black sprayed from the wound, but the imp was not yet defeated. The Battlemage pivoted, dodging the imp's retaliatory strike and countering with another powerful slash. This time, his blade found the creature's heart, and with a final pitiful wail, the imp collapsed into a heap of smoldering ash. Sheathing his sword, the Battlemage remounted his steed and pressed on, the eerie silence of the aqueducts now broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. The road ahead twisted through dense forest, and the Battlemage felt a growing sense of unease again. It wasn't long before he discovered the source. Blocking his path stood 3 figures, each clad in dark robes adorned with arcane symbols, apprentice wizards, sent by the Deathspeaker to impede his progress. They stepped forward, their eyes glinting with malice and confidence, and one would say arrogance. "Turn back," Battlemage, the leader of the trio, commanded. "Our master does not wish for you to reach Agartha." The Battlemage smirked, his grip tightening on the hilt of his sword. "Your master's wishes mean nothing to me." With a shout, the first apprentice hurled a bolt of electric energy, The Battlemage deflected it with a sweep of his sword, the steel absorbing and dissipating the attack. He retaliated with a blast of his own magic, a searing bolt of fire that struck the apprentice squarely, sending him sprawling to the ground. The second and third apprentices advanced, their hands weaving intricate patterns as they prepared their spells. The Battlemage was quicker. He thrust his sword into the ground, channeling the power of earth, and flames erupted in a circle around him, forcing apprentices back. "You are outmatched," he taunted, stepping forward through the wall of fire. One apprentice conjured a barrier of ice, attempting to extinguish the flames, but the Battlemage's power was too great. He shattered the barrier with a single strike, his sword blazing with arcane energy. With a swift, precise slash, he felled the second apprentice. The last of the trio, desperation in his eyes, summoned a withering mass of bark and twigs to envelop the Battlemage, but the anti-hero's resolve was unshakable. He raised his hand, calling upon the sacred water given to him by the Fanvel Muse. The vial glowed as he uncorked it, pouring some of the radiant liquid on his blade and drinking the rest. The sword burned with renewed vigor, its lights piercing the shadows. With a final decisive strike, the Battlemage vanquished the third apprentice, and the shadowy tendrils of bark and twigs dissipated into the night. Breathing heavily, he surveyed the fallen wizards, with a sense of grim satisfaction washing over him. The path to Agartha was now clear, but the Battlemage knew that the Deathspeaker's attempts to thwart him were far from over. Mounting his steed once more, he pressed on, his mind set on the challenges yet to come and the spear of destiny that awaited him. As he rode, the night grew darker, and the weight of his quest pressed heavily upon him. But with the sacred water in his possession and the unyielding determination, he felt an indomitable strength risen within him. The real battle was drawing closer, and the Battlemage was ready to face it head on. Chapter 3. The Kingdom of Agartha. A day's ride past the humble village of Karn, the Battlemage could see it in the distance, a forest at the base of two large hills. This was the forest of Agartha, and below it lay a tunnel that the map said would lead to the Kingdom of Agartha. There many rich ores, treasures, and relics awaited discovery. He dismounted his steed and approached the forest, the trees whispering with more ancient secrets as he passed by them. The air grew cooler and the scent damp with earth, and the scent of damp earth filled his nostrils. He navigated through the dense underbrush, the map clutched tightly in his hand, until he found what he was looking for, a moss-covered entrance to the underground network. As he descended into the darkness, a sense of anticipation mixed with caution settled over him. The tunnel was narrow and winding, and the air heavy with mineral and soil. He walked cautiously. After hours of navigating the labyrinth passages, he arrived at a large open chamber. The walls sparkled with veins of precious metals, and ancient relics lay scattered about. But the Battlemage's eyes were fixed on the deeper passages that led further into the kingdom. He needed to find the Spear of Destiny. The map had an area of unknown pathways to traverse. The map was not very clear. Pausing for a moment, he looked up and addressing an unseen audience. "Well, my loyal observers, it seems I have reached a crucial juncture. Should I summon the dwarven digging team to help carve a path through the treacherous depth, or should I call forth a flock of pillory bats to scout and guide me through the labyrinths?" Bats or dwarves?
What's that card do again?
Dwarves, allies on nearby sites have burrow. Whereas the bats, they're just a unit with burrow.
They can just show
Oh,
up.
the
They're
digging.
like-
The dwarves have burrowing themselves.
They do, and they give other things more.
Yeah.
So,
The bats have airborne. I don't know how much I
I
have.
feel like dwarves are just that'd be cool.
I like
Yeah,
it's a whole
dwarves,
team
you don't
of
really know what you're
dwarves,
expecting.
as opposed to like a couple bats.
Dwarves.
Dwarves.
Or digging.
Secret tunnel.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
He waited as if listening for a response, and then nodded. Dwarven digging team it is. With a whispered incantation, he summoned the Dwarven digging team. From the shadows emerged a group of stout, bearded dwarves, each carrying pickaxes, and shovels. Their expertise in mining and excavation would be invaluable in navigating the underground maze. The dwarves, led by their grizzled foreman, approached the Battlemage with respectful nods. "Lead the way, Master Battlemage," the foreman grunted. "We'll carve a path for ye." As the team began to dig, the Battlemage followed, their combined efforts creating a new passage through the dense rock. The dwarves worked tirelessly, their picks and shovels striking sparks in the darkness. The air was filled with the sound of metal on stone and the occasional grunt of exertion. The Battlemage and the Dwarven digging team emerged from the newly excavated tunnel into a vast, eerie cavern. More veins of precious metal glinted in the dim light, and more ancient relics lay scattered across the floor. In the center of the cavern stood a pedestal, atop which rested the glowing spear of destiny. The sight filled the Battlemage with a sense of determination. But his elation was short-lived. A figure stepped out from the shadows, cloaked in dark robes, and exuding an aura of malevolence. The Deathspeaker. "You've come far, Battlemage," the Deathspeaker intoned, his voice echoing ominously through the cavern. "But this is where your journey ends." The Battlemage unsheathed his sword, its blade catching the light from the glowing spear. "We'll see about that," he replied, his voice unwavering. The Dwarven digging team, sensing the imminent threat, hefted their pickaxes and shovels, ready to fight. The grizzled foreman barked orders, positioning his team strategically around the Battlemage. "Attack!" the Battlemage commanded, charging forward. The dwarves rushed in with a battle cry, their weapons swinging. The Deathspeaker responded with a dark incantation, summoning tendrils of shadow that lashed out at the attackers. The Battlemage led the charge, his sword slicing through the air and dispelling the dark magic. Despite their ferocity, the dwarves struggled against the Deathspeaker's powerful spells. The cavern echoed with the clash of steel and the roar of magical energy. The Battlemage's strikes found their mark, and the Deathspeaker staggered back, injured but not defeated. Enraged, the Deathspeaker raised his hands and uttered a spell in a language older than time itself. A portal of darkness opened beside him, and from it stepped a figure even more terrifying, the Death Dealer. The Death Dealer's eyes glowed with infernal light as he took to the scene. With a swift, fluid motion, he drew his blade and entered the fray. The Dwarven digging team, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the new foe, attempted to defend themselves. The Death Dealer moved like a shadow, striking the dwarves with ruthless efficiency. One by one they fell, their violent efforts ending in blood and silence.
We should have picked the bats.
The foreman managed to get one last swing before he too was cut down. The Battlemage, witnessing the slaughter of his allies, felt a surge of anger and sorrow. He tightened his grip on his sword and focused on the Death Dealer. The blade glowed with a fierce light, and he charged at the Death Dealer with renewed determination. Their swords clashed, the force of their blows sending shockwaves through the cavern. The Death Dealer's strike were precise and deadly, but the Battlemage's resolve was unyielding. He parried and countered with his blade. As the battle raged on, the Deathspeaker watched with a mix of pain and anticipation. His injuries made him wary of direct combat, but his magic was still potent. He began to weave a spell, aiming to tip the scales in favor of his champion. Chapter 4. The Wrath of the Vile Limbs. The Battlemage, locked in fierce combat with the Death Dealer, sensed the growing darkness emanating from the Deathspeaker. He knew he had to act quickly. With a final powerful strike, he drove his sword through the Death Dealer's defenses, piercing his chest. The Death Dealer let out a guttural cry before collapsing, the dark fire in his eyes extinguished. The cavern fell silent for a brief moment, save for the Battlemage's heavy breathing, but the respite was short-lived. The Deathspeaker though weakened, completed his incantation. The air around them crackled with dark energy, and from the shadows emerged a group of vile imps, the very same creatures the Battlemage had defeated earlier in his journey. The imps cackled with malicious glee, their eyes glowing with fire. They circled the Battlemage, their claws crackling with flames. Without warning, they lunged at him, their fiery attacks scorching his armor and searing his flesh. The Battlemage gritted his teeth against the pain, swinging his sword to fend off the imps. Despite his efforts, their speed and agility allowed them to land several hits, their flames licking at his skin. He could feel the fire burning through his defenses, the pain almost unbearable. As he fought violently against the onslaught, the Deathspeaker watched with a cruel smile. "Did you think this would be that easy, Battlemage?" he taunted. "My magic is not so easily overcome." The Battlemage's movements grew slower, the pain and exhaustion taking their toll. The imps pressed their advantage, their relentless assault driving him to his knees. For a moment, it seemed as though all hope was lost. But the Battlemage, fueled by pride, refused to give in. With a final surge of strength, he swung his sword in a wide arc, dispelling all the imps into a burst of raw magical energy. The vile creatures screeched and vanished, leaving behind only the smell of sulfur and scorched earth. Breathing heavily, the Battlemage struggled to his feet, his body battered and burned. He looked up to the Deathspeaker, a look of frustration crossing his face. The Battlemage raised his sword, his eyes blazing with defiance. "You may have your dark magic, Deathspeaker, but it won't save you. I have felled many a necromancers before you." The Battlemage growled, his voice steady despite his pain. Chapter 5. A True Master. With a wave of his hand, the Deathspeaker summoned a new foe. The air crackled with electric energy as a Grandmaster Wizard materialized before the Battlemage. Clad in flowing robes, adorned and an owl perched upon his shoulder, the wizard's eyes etched with the wisdom from 100 years of study. His presence exuded an aura of immense power. The Battlemage knew he was facing a formidable opponent. The Grandmaster Wizard raised his hands, chanting an incantation that made the very air around him vibrate with raw magic. Dark clouds gathered above, and from them descended a bolt of lightning aimed directly at the Battlemage. The Battlemage could not react fast enough. The bolt of lightning struck true. There was a quick pause. The air smelled of singed leather. The Battlemage had his head down, with sword by his side at the ready. He then stood tall and looked at both the Grandmaster Wizard and the Deathspeaker. "Finally, worthy opponents. I will savor this victory more," he continued. "Now, defeating both of these masters of magic will take more than the Battlemage's brute strength. Should we have the Battlemage summon an ally, or use his own magical arcane spells?"
Ooh. This is like kind of vague too. Like I don't know what's in his arsenal. I don't know what
allies.
Who's his ally?
Allies would be cool.
What allies could be.
But
Your
what
Wizard
if
is a zero power unit.
Poison Nova?
Well, I feel like he
could be
used
disadvantage.
poison. He said something about like
He said lightning.
yeah, well he like thrusted his sword into the earth and he said like fire like erupted from around. Oh no, that was
I was talking about
fire.
that was
wildfire.
Battlemage.
You could also link the water path, so you never
Oh, right, oh, you're saying
the
wizard.
So that would be like polymorph.
Oh yeah, polymorph is good because it's a banish.
I don't know if he's gonna do it, but yeah.
Oh yeah, we did choose a water.
We did
Yeah.
choose
Yeah, we
water.
choose water.
I don't know, maybe it's water.
But yo, if we choose allies, we could get the bullfrog.
That's what-
We could-
Or it could be. I feel like allies we get some cool mystery.
Allies
It's a
could do
mystery.
something.
Yeah. Oh man.
So we have come to a consensus.
I like allies, but you guys
Allies?
can do whatever.
Let's
I-
do
I
Allies,
personally-
I'll do allies.
Let's do
Allies.
Okay. Wizard of old, you think you are the only one here able to harness the man of air, the Battlemage snarl of the Grandmaster Wizard. You may be a wizard, but what is a wizard to an avatar? Just then, he uttered the word blink. In an instant, he was staring face to face with the old wizard. To his surprise, the wizard did not flinch. He glared back at the avatar. I may not be an avatar, but I fear death not when I'm in contract with the Deathspeaker. You fool, chuckled the Battlemage. Who will revive you when he too is scorched? The Grandmaster Wizard's eyes narrowed. Let us see then, who will be left standing. With a flick of his wrist, the wizard conjured a swirling vortex of wind and lightning. The air crackled with energy of bolts of lightning, and they arced towards the Battlemage. Without hesitation, he raised his sword, channeling his mana into a protective barrier. The lightning struck the barrier with a deafening crash, sparks flying in all directions, but the Battlemage held firm. They stood in the vast cavern of the kingdom of Agartha, the air thick with the scent of earth and stone, and bolts of lightning and scorched earth. The cavern walls shimmered with embedded crystals, casting eerie reflections around them. The ground beneath their feet was uneven, covered in a mixture of rock and ancient artifacts. As the lightning faded, the Battlemage knew he needed a moment to recover. He summoned his mana and called forth an ally. Come forth, wicked witch.
Okay, it's a spellcaster.
From the shadows of the cavern, a wicked witch emerged, her presence commanding and darkly enchanting. She glanced at the Battlemage, understanding his needs without words, and turned her gaze to the Grandmaster Wizard. You will not face him alone, she hissed, her voice echoing off the cavern walls. The Grandmaster Wizard frowned, sensing a new threat. 2 against 1, hardly fair. Life rarely is fair, the witch replied, her hands already weaving intricate patterns herself in the air. As she engaged the wizard, the Battlemage stepped back, using the precious moments to heal his wounds. He watched as the wicked witch summoned the power of earth, causing the ground to tremble and crack beneath the wizard's feet. The Grandmaster Wizard retaliated with bolts of lightning, but the witch deftly deflected them with barriers of stone and earth. Their battle raged on, the cavern shaking with the force of their spells. The witch was relentless. Her mastery of earth spells kept the wizard on the defensive. She conjured massive boulders and sent them crashing towards the wizard, who barely managed to shatter them with his lightning before they struck. The Battlemage, now rejuvenated, watched the duel with a keen interest. The wicked witch was powerful, but he knew she had to do a final spell that could end this. As the Grandmaster Wizard prepped another powerful lightning strike, the witch raised her hands high, chanting ancient words of power. Earth, heed my call. Bury this foe beneath your mighty embrace. The ground beneath the wizard erupted, forming a swirling vortex of earth and rock. The Grandmaster Wizard's eyes widened in shock as the vortex pulled him down, his lightning dissipating into the air. He struggled, trying to conjure a spell to save himself, but the earth grip was too strong. With a final desperate cry, he was dragged beneath the ground and the cavern floor sealing over him. The cavern felt silent, the air still crackling with the remnants of their battle. The wicked witch turned to the Battlemage, a satisfied smile on her lips. Your wounds are healed and your path is clear, she said. The Grandmaster Wizard is no more. Well done, the Battlemage replied, feeling a surge of gratitude. You have my thanks, witch. She inclined her head, her eyes gleaming with dark amusement. Be careful, Battlemage. The Deathspeaker will not take this loss lightly. Let him come, the Battlemage said, his voice steady with determination. I am ready for whatever he throws at me. Chapter 6. Heat of the Battle. Ha 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 ha. An evil laughter echoed through the cavern as the Deathspeaker watched from his perch. Your ally may have bested mine, but I am the master of death. He crossed his hands and uttered a familiar incantation in the old tongue. From high above, a shadowy mass descended. As it fell, it unsheathed a sword and swiped at the wicked witch. She crumbled to the ground, arms outstretched towards the Battlemage. Enraged by the loss of another ally, the Battlemage lunged at the death dealer. But before he could land a blow, the figure dissipated into a cloud of shadow, vanishing before his eyes. If you're so fond of death, then I think I'll end your life right now, yelled the Battlemage, his voice resonating across the cavern. The Deathspeaker's eyes gleamed with malice. Come then, Avatar, let us see who truly is the master of this realm. The Battlemage summoned all his remaining strength and channeled his mana into a formidable spell. The ground beneath him trembled, and a fiery aura enveloped his body. He called upon the power of fire, shouting, "Blaze!" In an instant, flames erupted around him, propelling him across the cavern like a comet. The Battlemage streaked towards the Deathspeaker, his entire form ablaze. The intense heat and speed caught the Deathspeaker off guard, and he could only raise a weak barrier before the Battlemage crashed into him, engulfing them both in a fiery explosion. The Deathspeaker screamed as the flames scorched his flesh. Summoning all his dark magic, he managed to push the Battlemage back, casting a desperate spell. I summoned thee, Grandmaster Wizard. A portal opened and the Grandmaster Wizard stepped through, his eyes crackling with energy. Without hesitation, he raised his staff and unleashed a bolt of lightning. The Battlemage barely had time to raise a protective barrier, and the lightning struck with blinding flash. Gritting his teeth, the Battlemage knew he needed more power. He summoned his mana and shouted, "Gigantism." His body began to grow, muscles expanding, his form towering over the cavern. The ground shook under his massive feet as he stepped forward, the Grandmaster's Wizard's lightning still arcing around him. With a swift motion, the enlarged Battlemage swung his massive sword, swatting the Grandmaster Wizard's aside like a fly. The wizard dissipated, vanishing back from wherever he had come. The Deathspeaker, now desperate, hurled firebolts at the Battlemage, each one striking with deadly precision. The Battlemage winced in pain but pressed forward, his enlarged form giving him immense strength and resilience. With a roar, he swatted away the firebolts, the flames flickering harmlessly against his giant body. "You could not defeat me, Deathspeaker," the Battlemage thundered, his voice echoing through the cavern. The Deathspeaker snarled, summoning more dark energy, but the Battlemage was relentless. He reached down, grasping the Deathspeaker with his enormous hand. The Necromancer struggled, but his dark magic was no match for the Battlemage's raw power. "I am a Super Saiyan." Wait. Hold on. Wrong story, sorry. What he really said was, "This ends now." The Battlemage growled. He raised his sword high and brought it down with tremendous force, cleaving through the Deathspeaker's defenses and striking him down. The Deathspeaker laid out a final agonizing scream as the life drained from his body. The dark magic that had sustained him dissipated, leaving nothing but a lifeless husk. The cavern fell silent, the echoes of the battle faded into nothingness. Breathing heavily, the Battlemage released the spell, returning to his normal size. He approached the ancient relic, its gleaming surface reflecting the light of the cavern. As he grasped the Spear of Destiny, a sense of triumph washed over him. He had overcome countless trials and vanquished formidable foes. The realm still held many secrets and dangers, but with the Spear of Destiny in hand, the Battlemage knew he was ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead. The end. Appreciate you guys helping the Battlemage conquer his foes. Those good choices, very good choices.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
I hope you guys enjoyed that.
It was very.
Yeah, I tried to sneak some Easter eggs in there for
Your
sure.
writing is
I appreciate that.
very good.
Yeah, no, it was awesome.
Great job.
Thanks
We
for
enjoyed that,
listening
for
and
sure.
sharing this time with me. Have a good rest of your weekend, guys.
You doing more of this on your stream?
On my YouTube channel, I do have a full story of the Pathfinder,
Nice, okay.
and I got the first handful of chapters up for the Enchantress story as well.
Okay, sweet. I'll check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so we can listen to this
Very
on our
good.
flight.
That's cool.
Very cool.
That's cool.
All right, guys.
We'll see you
Have a good one.
tomorrow.
Bye, guys.
Have a good one.